This is first quarter midterm review for photography class. We covered 4 major areas in photography this 9 weeks. Computer technology, the types of photography, types of cameras, and some composition techniques. We also got pretty technical with some photography technical terminology, and then very important with any type of photography is lighting. So let's start off with our computer technology. All right, I know this looks like a lot of information. We'll try and go through it quickly, and you guys can follow along. Rewind if you need to, pause, whatever you need to do to fill in the practice midterm quiz. With our computers, you've got hardware and software. Hardware are the things you can touch, the keyboard, the mouse, the monitor. Anything you can touch that's hard is hardware. The software are the programs inside the computer. Things like Microsoft Office or our editing software, Photoshop or GIMP. Any of the programs stored on the computer are hardware. And the programs are stored in the hard drive. That's one of the things you want to look for when you're buying a computer. First, you want to look for price, then storage space. How much are you going to put on your computer? Are you going to need to have a lot of room for video and photography files? And then you also want it to be fast. You want it to have speed. So hard drive is the storage space for RAM, random access memory, and then speed, we're usually talking about the CPU, the brain of the computer, the central processing unit. And nowadays there's dual core and quad core, things that the Geek Squad can explain to you a whole lot better than I have time for. Most of you guys use your computers and electronic devices for social media, which is great. We want to use them more for education. With social media, you've got to be careful. There are several dangers out there. The number one danger being identity theft. Anything that's bad on computers we call malware. Things like viruses, Trojan horses, and worms. Things you need to watch out for. Most of the time, people are trying to track your information. They do that with tracking cookies. All right? There can be good cookies and bad cookies. Just like when you guys are in the kitchen. All right? It comes through usually by being phished. They're trying to reel you in, phishing, by sending you spam or email that looks legitimate but may contain a virus and certainly has a tracking cookie. That tracks your IP address. Every computer or device you get on the internet with has a numeric code, kind of like your phone number. That's your IP address. That's different than the domain name. When you create your Wix website for your photography pages, that's a domain name. The letters and words that people type in to find your photography pages, also called URL. So don't get those two confused. IP address, numbers, domain name is the letters, the address of your computer. To get online, you need an ISP, an internet service provider. Most of us have Wi-Fi in certain locations that we don't have to pay for, but at home, we may have Time Warner Cable, Roadrunner, or a DSL, digital subscriber line. That's who we pay for our internet access at home. You also may have a piece of hardware to get you on the internet called a modem that allows you to connect to the internet. Now, one of the biggest confusions is right here between browsers and search engines. Browsers are the programs that allow you to get online. Most popular, Internet Explorer. I prefer Chrome, and folks with Apple computers use Safari usually. Okay? That's the software, the program on the computer that allows you to get online. Once you're online, then you go to your favorite search engine to surf the net. That could be Google, Yahoo, Bing, whichever search engine you prefer. So don't get browsers and search engines confused. All computers need an operating system, an OS. Apple has its own iOS. You know, Apple likes to use the I before things, so their operating system is iOS. Other computers usually operate on Microsoft Windows applications. Macs versus PCs. PCs are personal computers. They can be manufactured by a bunch of different companies. IBM, Dell, Hewlett-Packard, HP, where Apple manufactures their own computers, iMacs, MacBook laptops, to run the Mac operating system. All right, time to take some pictures. Right? The different types of photography. Most people use photography as a hobby, something for fun. The other would be professional photographers, and the different types of publications are those that come out daily, weekly, monthly, yearbook, or how we publish our photographs on the web. All right, so daily newspapers, weekly and monthly are usually magazines. Things that come out yearly or annually are like a yearbook, something that just comes out once a year. Different types of photographies we did the first 9 weeks. Fashion, portraits, abstract, photojournalism. And we used 2 different types of cameras. DSLR, the professional digital single lens reflex, or the small little point and shoot, PNS. A lot of folks just use their phone, and you can do very well with iPhones in photography class. In fact, iPhones have a built-in, very high-tech setting called HDR, high dynamic range. It takes pictures simultaneously and then gives you the choice of exposures from those pictures. So it's a cool little application. If you have it on your iPhone or Droid phone, turn on HDR, high dynamic range. It'll really give you some neat pictures. The parts of the camera, the lens, the body, the viewfinder, what you look through. The curtains are the things that open up for the shutter to allow light to the image sensor, which actually creates the picture and then saves it to the SD card. Tripod, we use head, legs, and mounting plate. Now the mounting plate fits on the camera, but it's part of the tripod. Next up, composition techniques. How are we going to take pictures? What do we want to look at? What do we want in our frame? So another word for composition is framing. The techniques we learned were the rule of thirds, dividing the screen up into a tic-tac-toe board. Foreground and background are very important. Make sure you have something meaningful in the foreground and meaningful in the background. That also adds depth to your picture and can also add some texture if you set the camera down on a tree or something that's got some feeling to it. It kind of puts the viewer in the location where you took the picture using foreground and background. Leading lines are things like walls or fences or bricks or the classic railroad tracks that lead the viewer's eye to where you want the subject of your picture to be revealed. And lastly, angle of view is the point of view, where the camera is. You want to mix it up and have some fun with high angles, low angles, maybe looking through something like a tire swing, making a frame within your picture frame. Things we use like the gazebo, the wooden frame around the windows of the gazebo. That's looking through. Adding a frame inside your picture frame also adds some depth and texture to it. Then we had to get a little bit technical with some terminology, and I know it's a lot of alphabet soup and can be confusing. Let's start with AOV, angle of view, that's different than POV, point of view. Again, point of view is where the camera is. Angle of view is what the camera sees, the angle of your zoom. And to zoom in, you've got to have a telephoto lens that may zoom in from wide to tight. For very extreme close-ups, that's the macro setting, or can be a separate macro lens. Wide-angle lenses give you the big picture. The ones that distort and twist are called fisheye, and then there's also panoramic. Again, another cool option on most smartphones nowadays is the panoramic picture-taking option. The prime lens is a lens that has a fixed focal length. It doesn't zoom in or zoom out. Real popular with professional photographers. They usually have one prime lens that is their favorite. The exposure triangle, shutter speed, ISO, and aperture. Those 3 things make up the exposure triangle. Shutter speed, ISO, and aperture. Aperture is also referred to f-stop. Remember, the bigger the numbers, the smaller the opening. Okay? Bigger number, smaller opening. I know that's backwards. It seems like it should be the other way. And when you've got a bigger opening, smaller number, bigger opening, small number, you've got a shallow depth of field, which means the things around your focal point are more blurry. Okay, so shallow depth of field means that you've got your focal point sharp and in focus, and the other things around it are out of focus. The common frame terminology we use is JPEG, JPG. It's what we record our pictures on, which have an amazing 16.7 million colors. Different than a raw file, which our DSLRs shoot, which is a digital negative. To add the color to it, got to do that in our editing program, either Photoshop or GIMP. Once we have it in GIMP, we import our pictures as layers and then add the alpha channel to it, which allows us to cut out and erase parts of our picture. And then to keep that transparency, you've got to save the picture as a TGA, Targa file. The millimeters are the focal length on the lenses. Now I gave a real simple example here, 25 millimeter to 100 millimeter zoom. That would have an optical power of 4x. You simply divide the bigger number by the smaller number to get your optical power. ISO is the electronic setting. On the old days, we used to have to buy different speed film. Now it's a simple click of a button on a camera. The higher the ISO, the more light sensitivity, but it also adds some noise or grain to your picture when it's recorded on the IS, the image sensor. Last one. Told you this wouldn't take very long. All right. Light. One of the most important things for photography is you've got to have good light. There are two basic types of light, indoor and outdoor light, hard and soft. Indoor light has a temperature of 3200 degrees Kelvin, outdoor light 5600 degrees Kelvin. Hard light is harsh shadows, hard to look at. To turn that into soft light, we can diffuse it by bouncing or reflecting light off of something like this, off of a whiteboard. Okay? Another term for flash is strobe. Triangle is three-point lighting. Just like we have the exposure triangle, we have triangle lighting, 3 different lights. The main light is the key light, which creates the shadows. The fill light fills in those shadows. And then if you've got a light on the back of your subject to make it stand out from the background, again, add some depth to it. The light on the back of your subject is called the backlight. The golden hours are great for photographers, especially with backlight. Provides a nice glow on the back of your subject if you shoot during the golden hours, which are sunrise and sunset. It can provide some really beautiful colors too. Shadows we worked with, purposeful shadows, silhouettes. When the subject is just a shadow cut out in the background. You don't have any detail of the person. They're kind of backlit and perform in front of the backlight, making it a silhouette. Exposure triangle one more time. Shutter speed, ISO, and aperture. If something's overexposed, it's said to be hot, too much light, maybe too bright when it's overexposed. Underexposed is not enough light. And the most important thing with photography, especially in digital photography, is practice, practice, practice. There is no expensive film to buy, no pictures that need developed. You can take hundreds of pictures and practice, practice, practice. Good luck. You shouldn't have a problem with the midterm.